Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am here today with probably the most confusing song that we're going to cover, and only by way of who actually did what, but not in the way of music this time. This song is called Running All Night with the Lion is the subtitle, and it was written by, this is from the official Uriah Heep page, written by Gary Farr, Mick Box, Bob Daisley, Peter Goalby, Lee Kerslake, and John Sinclair. So basically Uriah Heep plus Gary Farr. But it isn't, because it was originally written by Gary Farr, Eric Dillon, and John Sinclair, as well as Robin LeMessurier, Steve Humphries, and Steve Webb. And that was released on an album by a band called Lion that was John Sinclair's prior band before he joined Uriah Heep, and they released that on their Running All Night album in 1980. So here's what my guess is that originally the song was written by Lion, and then Gary came in and worked with the band to do a new version of the song that we will hear right now. And so I have not heard the original version. I don't think I know any of the covers that this band did except for one or maybe two that I can think of, but one for sure. We'll get to that in a few albums. But so this is kind of a weird situation because normally you don't have an old band member coming back to help with a cover version. But then again, it's a current band member's private or previous band. And I think we saw that too on a couple of other songs. I can't think of what they were, but they were in the during the Lawton era. I can't remember now. But in any case, here's where we are. And here is the song Running All Night with the Lion from the album Abominog. Well, let's start from the top. Mick has just found such an incredible tone for this album. The guitars sound just so thick. I love it. And I love the way that the band kicks in and you're just feeling energy. I would say this also, just based on what we've heard so far, would say this would have served as a good album opener as well, although I think they chose just fine. But yeah, really powerful. And then we've got kind of a little bit of a return to the Lawton area where we have the vocalist coming in pretty early before there's anything to really sing. Just kind of, almost like a crowd warmer. Well, it's such an interesting pattern because it's in 4/4, but it feels like it's off because of where they're putting the accents. And it's pretty cool because it is straightforward, but it completely misleads you as far as the timing of it goes. I like when things do that. I like when they make you think and then you find out, nope, they're normal. It just doesn't feel normal. Love the way that Peter's voice sounds when he's harmonizing himself. I think he's got such a great, strong voice. Still really haven't seen a lot in the way of range from him. I mean, he had that little scream at the beginning, but it's easy to pull off a scream once or twice. So it's going to be interesting to see how he adds, different harmonies and things to his voice, maybe does some higher parts here and there. But we don't know. But for what I've heard so far, I think he's got a fantastic voice. And the music is really strong and powerful. There's a really good balance here. You could hear what the drums are doing. You can hear the bass. There's some good keyboards in it. And of course, like I said, Mick's tone is really cutting through. So far, the song sounds great. I say so far as if I expect that's not going to continue. I do expect it's going to continue. Wow, I love that. I love the rhythm of the vocals over the rhythm of the music. As a musician, and this is for you musician guys out there. I used to love to do things like have a piece in 4/4, but then put something in 3/4 over the top of it, because every four measures it's going to resolve. The one is going to meet at the same place again. But it's really fun what you can create by putting different time signatures over each other. And that's kind of like what I feel is going on here, because it's almost like the vocals are being sung in a 3/4 over the 4/4 beat, and it does resolve, but it really is just an unexpected change, and I love the feel of that. And Peter's voice just sounds so strong on this, and I was thinking about what I said earlier about his pitches and what his real capabilities are. But when you've got a choral section behind you that can do the high harmonies, you don't necessarily need to stretch yourself that hard as a vocalist and do things that are, maybe not as strong for your voice. And I'm not saying it isn't for his, because I don't know yet. But I do know that where that might come more into play with a band like this, because you do have that backing, would be more towards the end of the song. And we've heard on some of the songs where, especially John Lawton would really just go for it as the song is fading out and the chorus is repeating, just really rip into some crazy spontaneous feeling stuff. And it helps to do that if you have a little bit more of a, range and able to hit the high notes and put some power into them. And it's possible that that just isn't Peter's style. It's possible that he can do that, but it doesn't sound as strong because his voice is a little more on the mid to low range. It could be anything, or it could be he said, you know what, you guys are going to cover that, so I'm going to do something different. But this was Mick's chance to put a completely different band together. In general, when I think about, okay, Uriah Heep needs to find a singer, well, the first thing that comes to mind is you need somebody with really strong dynamic range. And that's in general true if you're replacing the singers that you've had previously. But this may have been something that Mick said, you know what, I'm just going to find a guy I like that has a good voice, and we're going to go with that. We're going to make it work. We got backing singers. I don't know, but I do know that there's that possibility. And this was certainly a rebirth of the band anyway, since there was only one member that stayed. So total opportunity to go in any direction that you want. Then the question comes down to, okay, well, how do we cover the older material when we're doing them live? Because you're going to do all of those songs, or at least most of them. So, but at this point, they got 14 albums of material to choose from. Do you have to do Easy Living? Yes. Do you have to do Lady in Black? Yes. You're going to do those songs. But you're also going to do maybe some more new material featuring the new band. So it's interesting, and we'll see where the rest of the song goes. We're only about a quarter of the way through it. But I thought that was pretty interesting, that way that they timed that. Okay, drummers, this one is for you guys. I have a question. It sounds to me like Lee Kerslake is hitting the kick drum when he hits the kick and also when he hits the snare, because I'm getting a little bit thicker of a low end sound on the snare during this part. And I think that's what he's doing. I'm getting that little, push on my chest. The fills he's doing are fantastic. He's such on, it's like he left the band and came back and just said, all right, I'm ready to go. And he showed up and he's doing some great stuff in these songs. Love it. But yeah, I would be curious to know if you guys are hearing that as well. Now, see, those are the kind of solos that I just love from Mick. I mean, there's moments of flashiness in there, but there's also that just element of really sticking within the confines of the song itself and just playing some stuff that he just lets breathe, and this is definitely a perfect example of why I love Mick's playing so much, especially when it comes to his solos. I also love the keyboards that were backing the fact that there's no rhythm there. In the guitar, really nice sound, nice choice, not impending over the solo at all, but very cool. And that fill from Lee Kerslake, I mean, that's just fantastic going into the next part that I haven't played yet. But definitely, this band sounds so tight. They sound so comfortable for, guys that are just getting together and making their first album. It really feels like they've been playing together for years. There are some really nice transitions here, and it's just like a relentless song as far as the energy goes. I really like that. I think it's just one of those things that you're on the train and you're riding it to the destination. Where even though they give a couple of breaks in there as far as the tempo goes, it doesn't really feel like it stops. And I like that. I like the way they just jump from one part into the next. But that transition feels so smooth. It's really nice. Okay, so we all know that I'm not a huge fan of repetitive choruses, but this one I really don't like, and here's why. Because at least when you have a repetitive chorus, if it's like a two-part chorus where you have a couple of different lines to interchange, that's not so bad. When all you're doing is repeating the one line over and over again, it's a little bit different. I kind of wear out on that faster. The sound of it is great, though. I love the passion in the vocals. I love the strength in this song. It just sounds very powerful. Some great playing from everybody. And I didn't really talk about the bass or the keys, but I love the keys in the background. I love what Bob Daisley's playing. He's really just jumping right in with both feet into this band. I did also notice a shaker in there, just keeping up that rhythm a little bit, adding a little more to the power of the song. But overall, I think it's a really good song. I'm going to have to, at some point, go and hear the original version by Lion. But it's interesting because, they rearranged the song. Obviously, they're crediting themselves as writers as well as one of the, two of the writers, basically, from the original band. But that means that they did an overhaul of the song. And if they did an overhaul of the song, then it was an interesting choice to just repeat that one line over and over. But again, we're talking early 80s. That was not an uncommon style for that time of day, for that time in history. And I always have to keep that in perspective, that what I'm looking at now in 2021, this was released in 1982. So, a huge amount of things have changed in music. I'm older. I've experienced all kinds of different music. There's things I like, things I don't like. There's things that are really cliche to me because I've experienced them too many times in my life. So I really am trying to put myself back in the time frame of it is 1982 and I'm listening to this song for, the first time or the second time or whatever. And that's what I've really been trying to do with all these albums. So I do tend to get, though, a little bit off track and back in current time and saying, okay, like, I really don't like this. There was a lot of this stuff back then. And then I realized, yeah, I need to be back then, putting myself in that time frame. So overall, I really like the song. I think there's a ton of positives here. That's really the only negative that I have, is that just the ending, the way it just repeats the one line over and over. But they do a quick fade, to be fair. It's not like, one of their 1 minute fading songs where it's just one line over and over and over again for 1 minute. So I have to say that overall, it's pretty cool. I like the song. It's a good cover. I'll have to hear the original. But for them not writing it, I think that they played it together very well. And, that's, again, sometimes part of the reasons that bands do covers, especially when they're a new group of people coming together, is because they need to find each other as musicians and maybe not have the pressure of writing together. Let's just see how we play together. Let's jam on some songs, see how it goes, see how each other works, and, build that, team spirit, that cohesiveness that you need in a band. And then, we don't want the pressure of writing on us. We'll do that later. But for now, let's just become one. And I have to say, I don't know what order they wrote the songs in, what order they recorded them in, how long they had been together before they recorded. But what I can tell you is that this album sounds like a very comfortable band. It feels like guys that have been playing together for a long time. And so I have to say that might have been a big benefit in doing the covers. It certainly didn't hurt by any means, because, the covers are good songs, but I have to think that there was a benefit in doing them and not just jumping into, let's kind of figure each other out as we're writing an album because the record company needs one. So overall, I think it was, however it came about, I think the end result is great. So thanks, guys, for joining me on another episode of the show. We'll be back with another episode. Have a great one, guys. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!